Welcome to Resilience Rock Sales, your front row seat to rocking your sales game. I'm your host, Stacey Copas. Today's episode is brought to you by the Academy of Resilience Inner Circle. For more information, head to academyofresilience.com.au. Now on with the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Resilience Rock Sales. Today, I am very excited to be joined by the author of Money Magic, Michelle Masters. Michelle, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here, Stacey.
I've been digging into Money Magic, and the more I got into it, the more and more excited I got to have our chat today. And just so that we can get people to understand a little bit about why I'm so excited to speak with you today, would you share a little bit about your story just so that we can get to understand a little bit about Michelle and your journey?
Oh, yeah. Well, I had been looking for a long time for work I really wanted to do. I was in my mid-30s and I really was looking for work that had some meaning. Early 30s, I guess. And I was given this flyer for a free seminar in NLP, Neuro-linguistic Programming. And so I went to this free seminar and I almost left because there was only two of us there in this enormous room. And these guys were waiting for other people to come. And I saw the price of the training. And at the time I didn't have the money and I didn't want to get their hopes up. So I said to the other lady, I'm just going to go. She's like, don't go. Please don't go. She didn't want to be the only person there. And so I stayed, and within half an hour of this 3-hour presentation, I'm like, oh, this is what I want to do. This is it. And because I could feel things changing. And I thought if years of therapy, incredibly useful and helpful, self-acceptance, self-awareness, emotional vocabulary, but it didn't actually change the patterns that I had. In this, I could feel stuff actually changing. And I thought, if they can do that in 15 minutes, what can they do, for real? And so I took the training. Before I even finished, they asked me if I would kind of come on staff. And so I taught there for over 20 years. And I'm now, on my own. But it's taken me all over the world. And in 2006, they asked me to create a 2-day workshop around money. And I was so excited to be asked to do a workshop. I said yes before I even realized what I'd done. And then I was like, oh my God, I know nothing about money. It was like asking Vladimir Putin to do a 2-day workshop on nonviolent communication. It's not oh yeah, that makes sense. No, I had no relationship to money. And so I thought I better learn fast. And I realized, oh, there's no way I could learn enough about money to be useful. So I thought, let me just do what I do well, which is I took the change stuff, which is what I did with people all the time, what I taught, and I applied it all, these change techniques, to the context of money, and took people through a series of changes over 2 days and then sent them off to see what happened. And it went better than I could have ever imagined. It's taken me all over the world at this point. So, and then in 2008, I took a matrix energetics workshop with Richard Bartlett and Melissa Joy, which is a quantum way of working. And so then I decided to add that in, because before, when it was all NLP, people would take the 2 days, they'd go off, they'd integrate, and over the next few days and weeks, things would start to show up. When I added in the quantum tools, because quantum is no space, no time, people started getting changes before the workshop. They would register and all of a sudden get a huge raise, huge bonus, new job, etc. Every time I do the workshop, I ask, how many of you have made unexpected money since you signed up? And it's usually between a third and a half of the class. So it's been really fun. And it never gets old, because getting to be with people as the beliefs shift, because those beliefs that we end up shifting, nominally people come for a different experience of money. But you have no idea how much those things are constricting your entire experience of life, how you feel about yourself, how safe you feel, how lovable you feel, how deserving you feel, how worthy you feel. So when those things shift, people feel so much lighter and everything starts to flow so much better. So it's been a real gift.
I love that you said that you nearly walked out of that. And
Yeah.
isn't it so interesting? Because and we hear these things a lot, isn't it? There's these real pivotal moments in people's lives. And often there's that element of discomfort and resistance and all of that sort of stuff. And so many times people will say, well, oh, I nearly didn't do it. And you sort of just sit there and go, well, look, I'm here. I might as well. And as you said, that lady that clung
Please
to you
don't go.
clung to you as a life raft on the day. And little did you know that you ended up down that path. being asked to do the thing about money, and you said you didn't know anything about money. Do you feel that not knowing so much about money was actually helpful in then
Mhm.
how you approached that
Yeah,
created that workshop?
because I didn't do anything like anybody else had done because I didn't know anything, right? And so I've had people say, "This isn't like anything I've ever done." I was like, "Well, that's because I knew nothing about money." So so I said, "Let's try this." And the neat thing about it is because it starts with wherever people are. Because I have people who have taken the class multiple times who are like, have make hundreds of millions or who have sold their company for $1 billion. I have had a group of people take it who were homeless and living in a group home, and one of the director kind of took them through the class with me. So, it doesn't matter what income level you're at, it's always about where you are right now, what that's like, and where you wanna be next. And it's not just the money, it's about how safe do you feel, how secure, how do you feel about you? Like, are you living the life you want, or are you just doing things you think you have to do to make money? Because that's a real travesty. Um, we spend especially if you spend a lot of time working and it's not something that you wanna do, that is so much of your life energy spent on something that doesn't feed you. So, making it so that people can work less, make more, have a good time doing it, have things flow, and have it be just this win-win scenario for everybody, that's a real joy to get to be part of that.
I can imagine just seeing those shifts, and then I can imagine you'd also be getting the emails and messages for years and years
Yeah,
afterwards, being able to
yeah,
get those stories from people as well. What an absolute pleasure to be able to do that.
yeah. I had no market. I've been doing this work for 25 or more years, I can't even I've lost track. Um, up until last year, I had no help with marketing. I did no marketing, and yet, like, because I did the belief work, like, this took me all over. It's like I had a thriving business with no marketing and really poor salesmanship. I gotta say, I had terrible salesmanship. I would almost discourage people from coming. But because I cleared up so many of the beliefs around money and how this works, it didn't matter that I was poor at sales. It just people just found me, right? Despite my best efforts to discourage them, they still came.
And as you said, clearing some of those beliefs around that and selling. And obviously, the audience that we're talking to today are people that are in sales.
Mhm.
What sort of advice would you have for people, particularly people that are coming into sales? Because I guess it'd be nice to be able to start their journey in sales with getting rid of some of these patterns that are holding them back. First of all, how would people recognize that there are patterns that are getting in the way of their sales success?
Mhm. The easiest way to spot your beliefs, because our beliefs are typically invisible to us. They don't seem like beliefs. They just seem like that's the way things are. So if you want to know what your beliefs are, look at what happens in your life. Do you have to work hard for money? If so, you have beliefs that you have to work hard for money. Do you have to chase sales? If so, you have beliefs that you have to chase sales. You have to do things, right? Which is the single most thing I hear from people after my trainings is their income double, triple, quadruple, whatever it did. They say, but I wasn't doing anything differently. Like they'll often say, these people found me because the beliefs had shifted. And so if you have a hard time asking people for money, usually this comes back to feelings of self worth or questions about our own worth, our own enoughness. And we outsource those to other people. Like, we either recruit people who will confirm our insecurity about ourselves, or we train them to be not sure about us the way that we're not sure about us. And the more we try to pretend otherwise, it always comes through. What we believe about ourselves, what we believe about the world always comes through, no matter how good a front we put on. And nobody has one belief about anything. So most of us have multiple contradictory beliefs, like some beliefs that we're okay. Most of us have some beliefs we're okay, or they're probably not listening to this podcast. They're living under a bridge somewhere, right? Um, and most of us have some beliefs that maybe we're not okay because we're human and it's a human experience is a really interesting one. And so as you if you do this work long enough, the balance starts to shift to more and more like, okay, like life can be good, life can be easy, I'm okay, I'm enough, whatever it is you're working on, more and more of those beliefs start to line up and align. Um, I like to go whitewater rafting. And we went this one time, before you go whitewater rafting, they like to sit you down for the safety talk where they spend half an hour telling you all the ways you can die on the river, like terrifying the bejesus out of you. So, this one time they started telling stories, and he told this one story about this day they had a couple of different groups, and in one group was a raft full of really big athletic guys. And another group was a group of 9-year-old Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts. And at some point, those two boats decided to have a race. And guess who won?
Cub Scouts.
The Cub Scouts, because the guys were all trying to prove how strong they were, but they were not rowing together, whereas the Cub Scouts rowed together. And that made such a difference. And so when our beliefs don't have, we don't have to have big, strong, powerful beliefs. We have to have beliefs that are all kind of rowing together. And then things just work so beautifully. Right? And so some of the major things that often stop people in sales are their doubts about themselves, their beliefs that you got to hustle, that there's a limited number out there. Like, this is actually not true. You don't have to compete or fight for sales, actually. And it's not a numbers game. You don't have to talk to 100 people. You only have to talk to the 10 people that actually need what you want. Like, if that's the number of sales you need. And so when your beliefs line up, those people start to find you, right? Because you're a good match with them. And because you're not believing anymore that, oh, you've got to, if I want this, I've got to do this. It's funny, the first time we came out to Australia, I forget when it was sometime in the 2000, maybe 2010 or something. And for me, that was, I had only been doing the money magic a couple years, and that was a big expense for me and my partner to go, for the amount of time we were going to lose our normal work, flying there, staying there, teaching there, all that. I figured out how much it was, and I started to panic. And then I remembered what I do. And I thought, okay, what would I like to make in profit? And I think at the time it was, I wanted to make 25,000 US, which at the time seemed like a lot of money to me. I mean, it was half of what I made from the company I was training with for the entire year. So it seemed like a big number, but that's what I decided on. Like I said, it was a while back. And then I forgot about it. I did not think, okay, how many people do I have to have in the seats? What are my expenses? What are what kind of profit do I have to, like, I did none of that. I forgot about it. When I got back and I went through and I tallied everything up and all the expenses and all, it was like $25,100 in profit.
Gosh,
Like,
that's amazing.
yeah. And I've had that happen since then in other ways, of other goals that I set. I have no idea how they happen, and then there they are.
So with that, how do you resist the urge to then, I guess for most people that are listening and even like personally, it's having that intention, that clarity going, this is what I want. But how do you then let go of I need to do all of these things and I need to have a plan and I need to work the
Mhm.
plan? How do you recommend that people reconcile that sort of pull between the two of those things?
Well, you gotta address the beliefs that are driving those, and the beliefs are usually you have to work hard, that you only deserve it if you've put in the sweat, right? Not true, by the way. If working hard made you money, like, high school teachers and janitors and nurses would be the 1% of the world, right? Those people work so hard. So it's not true, and there are people making a bunch of money who don't work that hard. There are people who plan and have all these practices in place and still never make any money. And then there are people like me who apparently have no plans or practices and still manage to make money. So it's clearing up the beliefs that are in the way. And the more you clear up those beliefs, and one of the things I'm running an online money magic class right now. And one of the things that I notice is over and over again, people will confuse what they actually want with what they think they have to do to get it. So I'll often say to somebody, what do you want? They'll say, well, I want 6 clients a week, at this rate, blah, blah, blah. And that's not actually what they want. What they want is a certain amount of income.
Mm.
And so they've come up with this whole process, right, that they think they need to do. And often too, I'll ask them, I mean, how come, what lets you know that you want that amount of money? And it's because they think if they have that amount, they'll feel safe. And I will tell you, I've had clients who have sold their company. One woman, I can see her face right now. She sold her company for $1 billion, completely riddled with anxiety, gave herself cancer, right? And she's not alone. So, and there are people who aren't making millions who actually do experience themselves as safe and secure. One of the examples I use is, here's a conversation you'll never hear. You'll never see somebody sit down in their 40s with an oxygen planner to figure out how much oxygen they'll need for the rest of their life. Are you going to live a long time? You're going to work out a lot? We're going to need more, You're going to watch a lot of scary movies? Like, we assume that oxygen will be there when we need it. Sometimes we need more, sometimes we need less, but nobody is hoarding oxygen against a rainy day. Well, there might be a few people. There are a few really paranoid people, but most of us do not hoard oxygen against a rainy day. Most of the problems with inequity in the world are because people are afraid and they are hoarding in the illusion that if they can bank up enough, then they will be safe. Whereas if you know that if you build it, they will come. If you know that what you need can come in a multiple of ways, wonderful ways at any given time, then there is less need to hoard. Because having a ton of money is not always the best case scenario. They've done surveys where the people who had reported the highest level of happiness, this was about 10 years ago, so it may have changed, was about $250,000 a year US. Below that and above that, decreasing experiences of happiness and satisfaction. Because a lot of money takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of care, attending, like it needs attention.
Mm.
And so diminishing returns. Now, some people, they have legitimate reasons that it works better for them to make more than that. And some people are quite content with less, right? That they're actually living the life they want to lead, because it's not always about money too. So many of the things we want can come not through money. We've gotten kind of lazy and we always think we need money to get the things we want. We had this one woman who took the class. She wasn't working. She didn't really want to work, but there were some things she wanted. She wanted a car, she wanted a vacation, blah, blah, blah. So she took the class so she could clear up her beliefs and get a job to make money. Well, at the end of the class, she still didn't have a job, but she had gotten everything she wanted, had shown up in a different way. Somebody gave her a car. And other people, they lent her their holiday home. Somebody else gave her, tickets for plane. Like every single thing she thought she needed money for showed up in a different way. And so when you're in that kind of flow, the possibilities are endless. And you don't have to kill yourself and do a bunch of stuff that really doesn't make you happy.
It's so interesting too, because I hear people talk about that they want a certain amount of money as well.
Mhm.
And then when you dig deeper and go, so what would that mean for you? What would that look like? What would that enable you to do?
Huh?
Often it's something that they could do right now.
Yeah, yeah. Here's the one, like, I can't tell you how common this is. Like, I wanna work this amount of time and have this amount of so I make this amount of money so that what? So that then I can spend time with my kids. Like, "Oh, okay. Well, would it be okay if you could spend time with your kids right now and your quality of life was still good? Like, would that be okay?" It takes them a while for that to, like, ricochet through like that's an option. But instead of a 10-year plan on all the things you have to do and be and how hard you have to work so that you can then relax, what if the whole thing, the whole next 10 years could be fun and connected to your family and spacious? Like, wouldn't that be a better situation, right?
So when people are recognizing from listening to what you've shared there and they're going, okay, yep, they're nodding, they're nodding, they're nodding.
Mhm.
Yep, I've got those sort of patterns. Where would people start with starting to, first of all, recognize those and then starting to shift them?
Yeah. It is very difficult to shift your beliefs on your own. Like, I've been doing this work, like I said, 25 or more years. And when I have something up, I go see somebody else
Yeah, okay.
because we tend to be blind to our own stuff. Like, even the world's best brain surgeon would not do brain surgery on himself or herself, right? That would be a really bad idea. And there's not a book out there called Brain Surgery for Dummies so that you can do it in your backyard and save money, right? So I usually recommend it, not necessarily, I'm not pushing for more clients, but I really recommend doing work with somebody who knows how to change beliefs. And so part of the reason I wrote the Money Magic book, because it's priced really, it's not priced to make me like I'm not getting rich off the book. I wrote it so that there would be something for people to have a resource to start to go through these exercises, because the exercises in that book are designed to start shifting the patterning. Because just wanting the patterning to be different won't shift it. The things that are in our way are not just conscious thoughts. You can't just consciously decide to change your beliefs because your beliefs are not conscious. They're stored in a different part of the brain from your conscious mind. Like literally, it's back here. It's not up in the cerebral cortex. And so I've seen a lot of people say, well, you just make a new decision. It's like, okay, but that's not where the stuff that's in your way is. So it's like if there was faulty wiring in your basement and you sent a team of electricians up to the penthouse to rewire it and said, no, it should be fine. So to rewire it, you have to actually access the part of the brains where our beliefs are stored. And those limiting beliefs are online really early, and they're in place before our cerebral cortex is really doing anything other than holding our hair up. And so this allowed the way that the exercises are structured gets access to the places where the old patterning is stored and starts to make new neural connections. So it like rewires, it starts to revise that old software. And the good news about software is if you rewrite it properly, it stays rewritten. You don't have to you don't have to spend 10 days every day rewriting your software if you do it correctly the first time. So these patterns are designed to start to rewire stuff. So a lot of times people at the end of if we're doing the 2-day workshop, they'll say, okay, they used to say, now what do we do? Like they were expecting me to give them a list of follow-up items. And I'd say, go home, we're done, go home, integrate, see what happens. Because done properly, the stuff stays changed. Now, most people, like I said, have more than one belief that's in their way. But each one that you shift starts to give you more and more of the experience that you want. So life can get better and better. And in some ways, that's easier on us for it to get progressively better than to it go from wherever it is to everything you want everywhere all at once. That's a little too much. When we go to Europe, we don't want to get off the plane in France and have them say, here's all your meals for the next 3 weeks that you're going to be here and all the experiences. Like, you want to savor. And so it's okay to start to revise these and let life get progressively better and better and easier.
I've been listening to your audio version of Money Magic. There's excellent exercises
Yeah.
in there. It just gives people, it's just, that's a good start, isn't it, to get hold
Yeah.
of that. And I like the audio because I've got you talking it through.
And the hemisphere syncing music to help your brain integrate better.
Yeah. And
Yep.
so I think I need to stick the headphones in when I do that one next time. It's an excellent resource. So I do recommend people getting hold, particularly the audio version is fantastic. But from a sales perspective, where there is that element of the pressure is around numbers and competition and all of those type of things, do you find that when people do this work, then they can still be okay in that environment? That's still that pressure. Is that something that people find difficult?
Well, it kind of depends on the beliefs a person has. So most of our beliefs about ourselves are in place by age 3, and pretty much almost all our beliefs are in place by age 6. And so our beliefs about ourselves, our beliefs about the world, what's possible for us, what we're capable of, what we're worth, what we deserve, how the world works, those are pretty much set by the time we're 6. And so what we do then is we go out and we tend to recreate, we tend to recruit people that match our belief system as our intimate partners and the people that we work with. Those are the 2 main places, friends as well, but especially intimate partners and the people we work for or with tend to have a lot in common with our growing up, let's just say. Okay. And so if our growing up was difficult, if we grew up with folks who are in a lot of pain or stuck, the odds are high that we may choose people either to live with or work for who are similarly unhappy or stuck. So when we change our beliefs, it doesn't necessarily change them. It can change our results and it can change our experience of their behavior. So it doesn't have to be so much of a problem. But those people will probably still continue to be who they are. Sometimes it doesn't bother us, it becomes a non-issue, or sometimes what happens is we find places that are a better match then for what we know now about ourselves and the world. Kind of
That's
upgrade.
interesting. That's interesting because I've definitely heard it that you do end up, I guess, with intimate relationships. And I know personally, having been married and divorced, and then when you go
Yeah.
back and you look at it and you go, oh my gosh, it was just like I basically repeated my parents' relationship.
Yeah.
And and then once you got that recognition, but I hadn't heard it I hadn't heard it mentioned in the context of who you work with and for.
Mhm.
And so that's really interesting. I know I'm gonna be going back going, gosh, what was that? That's super interesting as far as that goes. And so, and as you were talking about that, I'm thinking, oh, I'm wondering if people that then start to do this work do end up then changing where they work and what they do in the process as well. So as the beliefs are changing, then the world around is going to change to reflect those beliefs, isn't it?
Yes, yes, I've had it work both ways. I've had it where they decide to leave, um, or they get fired, and it turns out to be the best thing ever. Or I've also had this happen where all of a sudden somebody's, crabby ass boss gets shifted around and they get a new boss who's much better. Like after they change their beliefs, suddenly there's a reshuffle and they get somebody that's much more aligned with who they are now. More often it's the former, but I have people have that experience too.
Yeah, these things work in mysterious ways, don't they? But
Yes.
as and I love that too because it is about the external environment is a reflection, isn't it? Because of the beliefs and how you see and the world being a mirror.
Yeah.
And that's so interesting. So changing what's going out into the world, isn't it? And how you're seeing it. And I also think you mentioned earlier that, it's only been in the last year that you personally have decided to, get some help in your
Mhm.
business, sales and
Mhm.
marketing. So what was it that prompted reaching out for that yourself?
Yeah. Well, I was very comfortable, but I think COVID was such an interesting thing in that it gave everybody a timeout.
Mm.
I got COVID before it was fashionable. I got COVID in I think we might have picked it up in Melbourne, but it hit me in Sydney in 2019. I was teaching. So it was June or July. Yeah, so before it was popular, but I'd never had the flu. And I got it, and I fainted while I was teaching because I didn't eat because I didn't feel right, but I had a fever, and I hadn't had a fever in, like, 20 years, and I only get a fever when I need an identity update, and I was due, and so I was sick for about a day and a half, and then it was done. My partner was sick for about 2 and then done. Um, got what I needed, all done, but in the year or so after, and especially with kind of the everything kind of stopping, all the previous momentum stopping for a while, this major expansion happened for me on the inside. Like who I experienced myself to be is so vastly different. It was only 4 years ago. So vastly different. It was vastly different within a year, and it's continued on that. And so, as a result of that, like, I've only got so many years on the planet, and it's okay, I'm fine with that, but there's things that I wanna have in place before I go. There's ways that I wanna leave. I want this work to spread, and there's a whole lot of structures I wanna put in place so that more and more people have more and more access to revising that stuff and living the life they want, and so it became clear, like, "Okay, it's time to spread this a little further." And I basically said this is how it works for me now. Because when you get really clear, clarity is a big deal. But I basically said to the universe, I said, okay, I'm ready. I need some help with marketing. Within 24 hours, Phil Hensler of Follow Your Passion sent me a direct message on Facebook saying, "Hey, guess what? We're doing this thing. I'd love to, this marketing company. I'd love to talk to you." And I thought, Phil, okay, knows my work, has experienced my work. I trust Phil. That's a good match because most of my problems with marketing, I didn't like a lot of it would appeal to fear, like
Mm.
scarcity, fear of missing out. Oh, it's going to call, there was a lot of it was emotionally manipulative and fear based, and that's not my work. So I was clear it had to be like joy and inspiration based. Like, I'm not going to scare anybody into taking the workshop. That's counterproductive. And so we had a conversation and it was like all good. So that's how it these days, because I've cleared up a lot of this stuff. When I get clear there's something I want and I actually want it, it usually shows up between 1 to 7 days. Somebody will call me, email me, direct message me, and there we are. I don't have to send out lots of calls like, who do you know? That's so much work.
I love that, and it sounds so effortless, and a lot of people are going, "I want that. I want that." And I'm glad that you put that out to the universe because it was because that you ended
Hmm.
up hearing from Phil that Phil introduced us. So,
Yeah.
I like all of these when you see just that clarity and that intention, and I guess and then surrendered as well, and then it's amazing then those little ripple effects that then come from some of those things when you look back on them as well, which is incredibly powerful.
And I understand where the word surrender comes from. In a certain essence, it's true, but it doesn't feel like surrender because at this point, I have so much evidence that it's not like, okay, I have to let this go. It's like, oh no, that's not my work. That's not my work to find those people. My work, your work is to steer, not to paddle, truly, right? This is what um, the metaphor I've been using lately. Your work is really to steer. What do you want your life to be like? How do you want to feel? What do you want to do? It's that more than the paddling to get yourself there.
My gosh, that's a writer genre, isn't it? For sure. Definitely a writer genre. I think that might be up there for the title of this episode, I think. I've not heard it described as that way before either, about steering, not paddling. And that just sounds fantastic. And I think even just, as you said, the clarity about what you want, from
Mhm.
what I've seen and even just personally, I think that's one of the hardest questions to answer, isn't it?
No, yeah, because you know why? Because the first off, our beliefs about needing and wanting, there's 2 periods when they're getting formed. There's 2 windows when the beliefs get formed in windows, time windows. And so the first time window is between 2 to 6 months, and the second time window is between 18 months and 3 years old, also called the terrible twos. Because it's when kids are discovering they have their own needs and wants separate from their parents. They kind of give their parents the finger, and it's all about them for a while. There's one more period where that happens, and that's adolescence, where they go through again. It's all about them and what they want, right? These are programmed in. They're not character flaws. They're not bad kids. It's like they are designed to start to notice their own needs and wants and advocate for them instead of operating as an extension of their parents. So it's incredibly important, but it causes all kinds of ripples when it happens, especially if the parents are stressed or overwhelmed when their kid starts, "No, no, mine," and wanting, sometimes it doesn't go well. And if either a parent has, an intense response or parents are overwhelmed, either not just from the wanting, but typically from their lives in general, the kid will start to notice, "Ooh, this may not be okay," and they start to dial that back. And, like, you ask most people, "What's the definition of being good?" for a kid, and almost nobody will say, "Why?" They clearly state what they want. Like, they will mostly say, "Okay, be quiet, do what you're told, right? Don't make any waves." These are, like, usually what people will describe a kid that's good. This is a kid who's not allowed to want much.
Mm.
So it happens really young, and then it becomes automated, and then in our 30s, we go or 40s, we go to workshops, they're like, "Oh, what do you want?" And it's like, "N file not found," because that patterning is still running. Like, in a perfect world, when we hit 18 or 21 or whatever, we moved out of the house, like, all of that patterning would reopen for revision, like, "Okay, do you wanna keep these beliefs?" But unlike your phone, your brain is not designed to update itself. It is designed to stabilize the beliefs you've already got. So it doesn't just make it hard to change, it flat out resists change. And that's why these change patterns are so important, because they are designed in a way that actually works to get the wiring to change. Because just wanting it to be different does, if wanting it to be different changed it, everyone would be instantly changing their beliefs all the time.
Yeah, and it's so interesting as you're talking about it, I'm like, yep, picturing those early days, and I was a child of the, late 70s, early 80s, so the
Yeah.
very authoritarian approach, and it was like, yeah, it definitely was not safe to do anything other than comply, really, wasn't it? And it's so interesting then how that then flows through. And as you said, it's like once you do get to your 30s and your 40s, that's when all of us start to go to the workshops and start to unpack this stuff.
Yeah, start to write affirmations on our mirrors and stuff. But the thing is, saying the affirmation is not a bad thing, but it doesn't change the original wiring. If it did, like affirmations, all we would have to do is put the affirmations we want in the mirror and everything would change. But it doesn't, right? It's not a bad thing because it does get us to picture what we want. It does get us to state it, but the old patterning is still running. And so when you get the old patterning out of the way, when it's not running interference against what you want, then getting clear about what you want, you pretty much only have to decide that once. You don't have to rehearse it, right? Like, oh, I would like help with my marketing. Oh, look, there it is.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned there about interference and things like that. And I've actually got a little reminder in my phone that pops up because I heard someone else talk about it. And it was about, clearing the interference between what you want and where you are.
Mhm,
And what could that look like? Because, which of the podcast is Resilience Rocks, and
mhm.
Resilience Rocks being those sort of foundational things and
Yeah.
the foundational pieces. So from a belief shift perspective, what are some of the things that people would do on a consistent basis? Like, are there sort of daily practices or there are daily rituals or anything like that people can do in order to work on those beliefs?
Well, again, if you do the things correctly, like the things I put in the book, and I don't say this to try and sell the book, honestly. I wrote the book because I actually believe this stuff, not because I thought this is a way to make good money, and because I've experienced it. So it's not about repetition as much as it is about accessing the parts of the brain that were developing at the time when the original belief got formed. But see, you don't have to, if you do, I laid these techniques out so you don't have to think about that. It naturally kind of does it for you. But when you can access the part of the brain where the old beliefs are stored and then make new associations, new neural connections between those old parts of the brain and what your adult self now knows and wants, then it feels like magic because things just start to change. So I was doing my online class, and one of the guys who'd taken it several times, he said, "Look, I'm starting to feel kind of anxious. Should I do the change patterns more?" And I said, "Well, how often are you doing them?" He said, "Every day." I'm like, "Oh my God, stop. That is too much change because all change, even good change, is stressful for the system. Like, give your system a break. Like, do change. Wait a week or two before you do another one, right?
Mm.
To let the dust settle, let your system integrate, catch its breath. Because we don't want all change all the time. That would be way too much. So what I usually recommend people do is, if they're going through the book, there's like 4 or 5 different change patterns in there. Kind of do them at your own pace. You can always go back and do on something else later, or if there's another layer that shows up. I mean, I have people who've taken my workshop 11, 12 times because every time they take it, they go from here to the next place. And then there's, oh, okay, that's good. Now there's another place. And the thing that is so interesting about the people who do this, work kind of in stages is the single most thing they tell me is they feel so much lighter.
Mm.
Like, and you can see it. Like they literally, they look younger, they look more relaxed, they look lighter. More light even comes off their skin because they're not carrying around, they're not having to fight against the weight of, not safe, not lovable, worthless, not deserving, that so many of us struggle with. Or worse, and this is so common, they're trying to carry the pains and burdens or heal the pains and burdens of their family of origin or their lineage. And that will screw somebody right into the ground and never change it for the lineage, and then just bury somebody on the weight of all this stuff, of other people's pain that they can't change.
Yeah, I can imagine when you mentioned that guy doing the change patterns every day, like, my gosh.
Yeah.
But it's good to know, again, that
Yeah.
there is an element of overdoing these things.
Yeah.
But I think that, to me, that sort of feels like that's a belief, isn't it? That, again, you still need to, that
Yeah.
work is
Yeah. Yeah.
get an outcome, isn't it?
Yeah. And that we can change other people's stuff. If I were going to offer a daily practice, what I
Mm.
would actually suggest, because I heard that somebody said a native healer of theirs said that 60% of the pain we carry is not our own. I would say that's a conservative estimate. In my experience, it's actually higher. So if I were to recommend a daily practice, it would be at least once a day to notice of whatever you're experiencing, how much of it is actually yours, what percentage. And just for a few minutes, take everything that's not yours. Like, imagine you could lift it up off you, put it over to the side, and look at it from the outside for a minute, and take a few breaths, just having your own experience. Because right there, most people will instantly feel lighter. We don't realize how much of what we're carrying is not even ours. So that wouldn't be bad emotional hygiene to once a day at least say, okay, what percentage of what I'm experiencing is mine? Lift everything else off for at least 10 seconds.
That's amazing. I'm definitely gonna add that into mine, because again, there's so much talk about being present in the moment, and I
Mhm.
just think that just adds another layer. I guess
Yeah.
it's actually taking off another layer technically, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's just a next level version of being in the moment, but as you're saying, being what's yours in the moment, not
Yes.
what is
Yes.
everybody else's. And, yeah, I'm definitely going to do that one
Mhm.
for sure.
Last thing I'll say, we all are superheroes with superpowers, but they only work on our pain, our lives, our stuff. We don't get to change other people's experience. That's their right, not ours. So when you use your powers for what they actually work on, big difference.
That's super valuable, because there is that element of feeling like we need to do all these things for other people. And that's also even like my painting behind me around the lighthouse, because
Mm.
it's my reminder to myself, again, job of the lighthouse is to shine the light, not to save the boats. And
Yes. Yes.
it's that constant thing. It's like, again, we just need to focus on what's ours and do that. And then, really, by doing that, then we actually allow other people to do the same, isn't it? And if we were all, imagine if we were all in that space where we only were carrying what was ours. It's a bit of a
Instantly
goosebumps
it's
feeling,
lighter.
isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. It's lighter and so much more doable.
So the a steering, not paddling,
Job is to
carrying
steer,
what's
not
ours.
paddle. Yeah.
Yep, carrying what's ours. This has just been such a valuable conversation. I'm so grateful for, your time and your wisdom and your experience, and being able to articulate these things in ways that it just really resonates and connects, and is gonna leave a lasting impression as well. And there's one more element on the resilience rocks angle as well, is there is a little bit of a musical twist with that rock,
Mhm.
because music is one of my rituals for resilience. And
Mhm.
so I'd love to hear for you, what what piece of music do you have as a bit of a go in order to shift your state, whether it's, up, down, grounded, all of those type of things. What's your go-to piece of music that would be one of your resilience rocks?
Yes, well, the universe often speaks to me through music, and so I have a dozens of them. But I had this dream, although it didn't feel like a dream, I think in my 30s, where God appeared to me as a small Black woman in a blue sequin dress and sang "Ain't No Mountain High Enough" to me, which is an incredible metaphor for, I know you must follow this on, just remember what I told you the day I set you free. Ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough. Keep you from me. And that has been my experience, that we are so much more loved and blessed than we realize. There is nowhere where help is not available, where we're not loved and cared for, even if we can't feel it. We are always loved, we are always cared for. So that has been, for me, one of the more lovely experiences, one of the more lovely gifts I've been given.
That is absolutely beautiful, and I feel really blessed to share that moment with you and have you share that with me and with our audience as well. So
Yeah.
again, ain't no mountain high enough. And
Yeah. Gave a
again,
whole new meaning to the word supreme being. If you're old
beautiful
enough to get that reference, Diana Ross and the Supremes.
is I definitely picked up what you're putting down. I'm a human jukebox. I hear a word or two, and it's like the jukebox kicks into a song, and music is just such an amazing gift that we have, and a great way to communicate, shift our vibration, shift our energy, help us connect with others and with ourselves, and with greater powers as well. So thank you so much. And for those who would like to connect with you further, find out
Mhm.
more about Money Magic, the workshops, the book, what's the best way for people to do that?
Sure, through my website, michellemastersnlp.com.
I'll put links to that as well. And I'm really loving Money Magic, the book, and I'm going to
Mm.
be looking out for the next round of Money Magic online as well. So, again, thank you so much for your gift today. And I look forward to continuing the conversation. And until next time, to the next episode of Resilience Rocks Sales, be your best. Thanks for joining us again this week on Resilience Rocks Sales. Don't just listen though, take action. The best sales professionals are always learning. Head over to resiliencerocks.com now to go backstage and get the resources mentioned today to help rock your sales goals.